Namaste and good morning, everyone. Let's do the prayers first. Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Om Bhuvasvaha, Tatsavitra Varenyam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Diyo Yo Nah Prachodayam. Asto ma satgamya, tamso ma jyotirgamya, mrityorma amritam gamya. Om Sahnavavtu, Sahnabhunaktu, Sahviryam karvavahi, Tejasvi navadhitamastu, ma vidvishavahi. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Last week we were talking about willpower, Sankalp Shakti. That is the power God has given it to us. Just like a power to see, power to hear, power to talk. So this is also another power, willpower. First, we got to understand what exactly is willpower. We did talk about it last week, but let me give you a definition in working terms. Willpower is that positive and creative function of the mind, which impels, propels, and enables us to do chosen actions in a definitive way, and avoid doing unchosen actions in an equally definitive way. Let me repeat it again. Willpower is a positive and creative function of the mind, which impels, propels, and enables us to do chosen actions in a definitive way, and avoid doing unchosen actions in an equally definitive way. So in other words, something we are not supposed to do, something we don't want to do, we need a willpower for that also. Okay, so willpower in both areas. It is that power of the mind which enables us to do what we know to be right and not to do what we know to be wrong, under all circumstances, favorable or unfavorable, known or unknown. Secondly, it is important to know and believe that willpower can be increased by everybody, without any exception, provided we are ready to apply ourselves to it and work for it steadily and methodically. So that means that our past failures have not necessarily to be our future failures. Nobody is destined to be weaker, except a person who chooses to be so. A departure for the better, nobler, higher state of existence, at least a determined effort for it, is possible at once. That means we can decide right now and we can use our willpower. It is never too early are too late to be good. True, pure, and strong. That's why our Vedic rishis, they told us to stand up, be bold, be strong. They said that know that you are the creator of your own destiny. All the strength you want is within yourself. They gave us a life-giving message. We should get a firm hold and unshakable faith in this fundamental truth. Only when we have a firm hold on this truth, we can develop a will for developing the willpower. It is very important to have a firm will to develop the willpower. Incredible it may appear, many of us do not have even the will to develop the willpower. We seem to think it's a big botheration, too much of a responsibility to be carrying about all the time. But when we know for certain that within ourselves is unlimited power, that we are not these puny things as we appear to be, that we are not weak, we are not broken, then we develop the mind to manifest that power in our life. That's how we can cut out the delusions and illusions which are contrary to the willpower. When the mind is developed, we are ready to take the most important step in developing the willpower. This step is to remove the dichotomy between the head and the heart, the intellect and the emotions, the thinking and the feeling. It can be done only by loving the truth of our being. If we know it for certain that we are divine, we are the children of God. With a great history behind and a great destiny before. We will hate to do things which are unworthy of us. In other words, our thoughts and emotions will unite in order to enable us to do the best expected of us by ourselves. This is the best way of fighting evil within ourselves and asserting the divine. The tamsikta, or we can call it evil or the devil, will run out. And how do we assert the divine in us? If we want to assert the divine, we must not do two things. We must not be cowards and we must not be hypocrites. We must be brave take courage in both hands, and follow the truth to its logical conclusion. Go with the truth wherever it takes us. This should be our motto. Two things will oppose this creative move within us. One is our regrets about the past, and the second is our worry about the future. And both of these are detrimental to the cultivation of willpower because they successfully undercut all forward looking, creative, positive movements within our minds. And they are wholly unnecessary because our past regrets, we exaggerate. We keep on thinking about them. We keep on worrying about our future failures also. And in result, what do? We only damage our present. We weaken our mind. We injure our future also with these two things. What you may honestly say now, that how can I but regret for my past? In the past, I have made many mistakes. I have committed many sins. Is it not my religious duty to repent for my past sins? This is a very important question, which really requires a thorough clearing and scotching. The most important thing to be done about the past sins or the wrong decisions is to stop thinking about them, physically or mentally. How do we do it? There are teachings in our Vedas about that. The Vedas, they say that constantly a person keeps on thinking that I am bound, only succeeds in bounding himself more. So in other words, if you keep on thinking that I have done wrong, you'll continue doing wrong even now. He who says day and night, I am a sinner, verily becomes a sinner. Instead of doing this, one should have a burning faith in God. And we should say that I want to repeat the name of God. Constantly, if I keep on repeating the name of God, the sin cannot cling to me. How can I be in bondage anymore? So in other words, if a person repeats the name of God, his body, mind, everything become pure. Why should we talk about sin and hell? These are wrong words, wrong emotions. We should say, oh Lord, sure, I have done wicked things, but I won't repeat them. and have a faith in you, and I am part of you. This is precisely what we need to do about our past sins. Just once in true contrition to God of your heart. This really I have done, pardon me, I shall not do it again. That's it. Recognize it. Make a commitment, make a promise to God. Then resolve to keep the word given to God. Because you have given the word to the highest, God. This is a promise between you and the God that you will not make that mistake again. And then repeat the name of God. Repetition of Lord's name will give us the power to keep our resolution. And another important thing, we must live a wakeful life in living present. Honestly, we got to try to live according to our highest conviction. Always examine your doing best, trying to find methods to even bettering our best doing. How can we increase our skillfulness, no matter what we are doing, without worrying about the result? Because worry for the future is a mental disease. The medicine of which is to live entirely in this moment with all our powers poised and applied. Those who want to develop willpower must avoid living in the past or future. Remember that. And live in the living present. If we live in the present wisely, according to our best light, our future cannot but be good, whatever the astrologers say. Somebody can say that, no, in your birth chart it's written that. That can be changed. That can be changed. That's the kind of a willpower our rishis want us to have. To live in the living present wisely, we require the guidance of a sound sense of values also. We should be able to persuade ourselves that we are not fooling around. We must be able to tell ourselves in and through whatever we say, whatever we are doing, that we are gradually but surely proceeding to the fulfillment of our destiny. This sound sense of values must be ascertained. And these values are called in yogic terminology, yam and the niyams. Those are the values we are talking about. Ahimsa, satya, stehe, brahmacharya, aparigraha. Shauch, santosh, tap, swadhyay, ishwar pranidhan. Those are the values we got to live by. So this sound sense of values must be ascertained with this, in this regard, for our physical, mental, and spiritual needs. When we have these values in our life, the four goals of our life, dharma, arth, kam, and moksha, we can fulfill them very easily. When we function in our daily life in accordance with this sound sense of values, we stay protected within a fire ring of wisdom. Where the evil propensities of life cannot easily penetrate. Then we live in the forceful conviction of living rightly without a trace of guilt sense. So cultivate your power of conviction at least. If you want to develop the willpower, believe with your whole soul you are on the right path. Do not doubt everything all the time. That is not intelligence. When we keep on doubting, am I doing it right or not? Constantly fluctuating our mind. That's not right. If you have that kind of a conviction, you will see how the willpower grows as if from nowhere. One thing rightly and powerfully done somewhere within oneself will help doing other things also. Just like if one right decision's made, the second one will follow also. Now, this sound sense of values requires to be zealously guarded because we are constantly assailed by chaotic winds of various contrary ideas. We live in this world. People will say different things. So, how do we guard the sense of value? Because one of the value is always tell the truth. But the society will tell us that somebody will say, you are not going to succeed if you keep on telling the truth. So that's why you got to guard your sense of value. We can do this by doing three things. By constant discrimination between the real and the unreal. That Vivek has to be there. Number two, keeping ourselves busy. Doing those things that we have decidedly accepted as beneficial. Don't be lazy. Keep yourself busy. And number three, by avoiding idle curiosity about things which do not concern our main pursuit in life. Because if we start looking here and there, we will definitely get deviated. Our mind will catch something which looks very interesting, but actually it is detrimental to our own goal. So do the right thing right now. Should be our day's order to the mind. That should be our principle. Instead of doing the wrong things hurriedly and repenting at later on, it's better to do the right thing right now. So when we follow these three principles, our willpower will grow. But for example, if we cannot decide ourselves what is right, what's wrong, we should definitely take a counsel from the teacher or some wise person in our life. If the teacher is not available, guidance may be taken from scriptures. Scriptures keep telling us what to do, what not to do. But even when we have decided upon a right action, many considerations will try to oppose its prompt execution. So that's why guidance is very important. When we are on this path, you might find some thoughtless people who will ridicule us. Selfish people may torment us for not doing wrong things. Even our friends may regard our behavior as strange. That is the time to use the willpower. You must follow what you have realized to be true and right. You must be extremely cautious. We must not impulsively jump into conclusions and then move ahead in a fanatical manner. That will harm us. That will weaken our willpower eventually. On the basis of whatever we have learned and determined, we should ourselves plan a simple routine for our daily life. That is the best way to strengthen your willpower. The daily routine should be planned, keeping in view that we are seeking daily self-preservation and self-improvement at all levels. All levels means physically, I want to stay healthy. Mentally, I want to stay calm. And intellectually, I want to stay sharp. So physical, mental, intellectual, every level. It should be so planned that our human relations, our recreational needs, our ideals, our aspirations, everything could be actualized through that routine. That is called a life lived according to yogic principles. In Hindi, it's called Yog Anukul Jivan. No matter what happens, we should follow that routine. In the preliminary stage, this is a very helpful method to get a firm grip on the mind. And when we have a firm grip on the mind, willpower will increase. Our senses will have to obey our decisions made with that kind of a mind. You will see that exceptional cases may arise when routine will have to be set aside. For example, if there's a serious accident in the family, or a friend has died, or even at a good times, there's a birth, there's a wedding in the family. But as soon as possible, we should again return to our routine. As soon as possible. Because if you delay it, it's very hard to get back on the routine. At a later stage, when we have made up sufficient leeway by succeeding in controlling the vagaries of our mind, we may adjust the routine according to the higher needs of our self-development. So that means that from time to time, we got to sit down and introspect. Is this routine working for me? Or is this routine just creating a more burden on me? It is extremely important to remember that in developing willpower, the greatest help will come from the power of concentration. Power of concentration. In fact, these two, willpower and concentration, they always go hand in hand. The power of concentration helps the growth and the development of willpower, and the willpower helps the power of concentration. So they are complementary to each other. How can we increase the power of concentration then? The simplest way to do is to pour our whole mind into the work on hand. Whether it is watching the clouds outside, or cooking, or cleaning, or praying, all day long, whatever you are doing, check it out. Am I doing it with the full concentration, or is my mind constantly wandering? Even going for a walk, even when we do Hatha Yoga, there are instructions from the teacher to make sure that mind is concentrated at a certain point in your body. It could be the prana, it could be the chakras, or it could be any joint. Concentration. In other words, when you are meditating, you must not be seeing something else. Because concentration leads to meditation. So you got to see that, is my concentration improving and becoming a meditation? If that happens, you will see that willpower will be increased. Anybody who meditates regularly have a very strong willpower. They both go hand in hand. And for this, we require a sufficient reserve of mental energy. In order to develop the willpower, we must stop all squandering of our mental energy. How do we squander our mental energy? By useless talks, by purposeless work. We just stay busy uselessly. Futile controversies, wild fantasies, backbiting, daydreaming, lewd thinking, concern for things which is none of our business, or even hypothetical fears, or finding faults in others. It's none of our business, but we try to look at the wrongs in others. That's how we keep on leaking our mental energy. So to build up a sufficient storage of mental energy, which is so necessary for motoring the willpower, we must stop doing things which drain our mental energy. We will notice that people of powerful will are people of few words. And what happened? People always waited attentively, listened to what they had to say. People with a strong willpower live with a purpose, for an ideal. They are immensely dynamic. They are poised. They are intense, but not tense. They are not easily shaken by anything. So the conservation of mental energy in its turn will depend on the conservation of physical energy. Physical energy, that's why the brahmacharya is talked about in those values. Do not lose your physical energy through these apertures of the body. Physical energy is conserved by living a moral life of purity and moderation. Yuktahar viharasya. Lord Krishna said that. In moderation is suppleness. In suppleness is strength. To develop the willpower, we must never take our failures seriously. We must not lose heart in the face of repeated failures. Because there's no other way to success except through repeated failures. You remember that story about the spider? Repeatedly fell down, but kept on climbing, kept on climbing, kept on climbing. Spider. I'm sure as a little child, we all read that story. So if in order to increase the willpower, we got to learn from our failures. Failures should be accepted as a part of the whole game, as steps to mount the pedestal of success. These steps, when followed rightly, will surely help us in developing the willpower. A situation may, however, arise when we discover that after doing all these things, what we talked about, to the best of our ability, our willpower is not yet sufficiently strong. What should we do in such a situation? We should stop, think, and analyze the whole situation. And we will most certainly discover that the failure of will is taking place in a subtle way through a wrong thought process. It is thought that gets translated into action. That's why they say that mind is the father of the action. Man is the father of the karma. If the thought is wrong, how can the action be right? Therefore, to strengthen the willpower to the expected degree, we should work on the thought process. Are we thinking it positively? Are we thinking that we can do it? Are we thinking that I'm on the right path? Look at your thoughts. How to work on the thought process or control thought? This we talk about it in our other classes. But for our present purpose, for our willpower, just remember that working on the thought process means prevention of wrong movements of thoughts. Okay, so no negative thinking. Because if we keep on thinking negative, how can our willpower be increased? But there's, however, one important point to be noted in development of willpower. The will must be given a right direction. All the notorious evil geniuses in history who inflicted on humanity unspeakably suffering, such as Hitler and his tribe, also had a kind of powerful will. That kind of willpower can only create bondage for oneself and miseries for others. So we are not trying to develop that kind of a malevolent willpower. We are trying to develop the benign willpower from which no evil can ever come out. We want only good to become out. The perfection of such willpower is attained only when we are able to say with all joy and spontaneity also that, Lord, thy will be done. not my will. At a certain stage, when the willpower is taking shape, great care and caution should be taken to direct it entirely to God. This is what our Vedic rishis taught us. In any case, whether we are weak or strong, prayer and repetition of God's name will always help us in developing willpower. These practices remove all evil thoughts and purify our mind. If we keep the God in our mind, we must take all care to hunt out all our inner blemishes from their hideouts. Because those wrong propensities, the evils, wherever it is in our mind, we have to take it out. But acknowledge them. Only then we will gain a strength in our actions. We must not keep on talking about our weaknesses all the time. Sometimes we just talk so much about our weaknesses. That's not, we get helped. On the other hand, we should, without any reservation, speak to our teachers about those. Speak to our guru about that, or any wise person we have in our life, but not to everybody. Because we need to get rid of the negativity, but if we keep on advertising it to everybody, we are not removing it. We are only growing them stronger. So when we practice prayers, meditation, repetition of God's name, God is with us. That's how we make our mind strong. That's how our will becomes pure. That's how we can make our will strong also. Another thing I would like you to remember, that none of us is absolutely devoid of willpower. When people say, I don't have a willpower, that's not true. We all have this power. Because where is this power coming from? From the source. And we are all part of that source. So let me repeat, none of us is absolutely devoid of willpower. Otherwise, we could not have been what we are right now. But it remains a fact that whatever may be the varying qualities of our already attained degrees of willpower, the more the will directed Godward, the nobler human beings we shall become. So by God's grace, we should stay connected with Him. God has given us all these powers. But if we connected with Him, we can do a lot more, enjoy a lot more, and move towards our goal, ultimate goal, much faster. Let's stop it here. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti 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 Om.